Sean is in Indiana, says, we are pregnant with our third child. We've learned that the baby has an issue that will be fatal. Heartbreaking. My main concerns are that of the mental and spiritual health of my family. And my next concern is that of the financial impact. The baby will be delivered cesarean, so we'll have a lot of out-of-pocket with the hospital. We'll then have the costs with how we choose to lay her to rest. I have a good emergency fund and all in all, a pretty good financial health. Is there any advice on how we can plan for some of the burden ahead? Sean, I'm so sorry. What a horrible thing to face. I found when I'm walking in these situations with folks, and I have sadly over the years lots of different similar things, that on the financial side of the equation, and you do have this right, the mental and spiritual health of your family is the primary concern. Financial is down the list, but they all affect each other. What I tell folks on the financial side is very simple. Pile up cash. The bigger the pile of cash, the less you have to think about money. And the less you have to think about money, the more you can concentrate on the things that matter. And money's not one of them. But that's what money does. It's a tool that gives you, it's a buffer between you and the pain, not because money makes the pain not be there, but because you don't have double pain. You don't have to worry about the cost of laying the baby to rest, or the cost of making sure your wife gets proper medical care, or the cost of ... fill in the blank. When you don't have to worry about that, then you can worry about what's really important, which is not any of those things. The cost is not the important part. The important part is you and your wife and your kids and the situation. So I'm just going to stop spending any money and say there's storm clouds on the horizon. I need a bigger umbrella. And I've got to batten down the hatches, so to speak. And that means pile up cash, pile up cash, pile up cash, pile up cash. So that when we walk through this, if the prognosis is correct, and I pray it's not, but if the prognosis is correct, the cash is, your gears are just grinding. There's just a lot of friction in your life. There's a lot of heat, and this is just oil. Cash is just oil over the gears. It makes it run smooth, makes you be able to not have to decide, you don't have to fret and go making decisions based on money. So the bigger the pile of cash you can have, the easier on the less of the financial part you'll have to think about, and the more you can concentrate on what matters. For the rest of you that are listening to me answer that, here's the equation, okay? Just think about it for a second. Let's go. If you take some of this advice and you say, let's take it to a bizarre level, and then it allows you to see what I'm talking about. Let's say that family had $2,000 cash, which they have more than that because he said he had his emergency fund. But let's say you're facing something and you have $2,000 cash and you've got $10,000 or $20,000 worth of expenses. Then let's change the number. Instead of $2,000 cash, let's say you've got $200,000 cash, and you have $20,000 or $30,000 worth of expenses. You see what I mean? Instantly you go, well, I wouldn't think about it. Exactly. That's my point. You wouldn't have to think about it. Now, I'm not suggesting he has two, and I'm not suggesting he's going to have 200 either. But that's one of the things that building wealth does for you and for your family, is it allows you to concentrate on things that do matter. We spend a lot of our lives concentrating on things that really don't matter around the subject of money, because money becomes our master in that sense. And Jesus said it's tough to serve two masters, like impossible. So P.T. Barnum, who's an interesting character, by the way, side note, if you've never read some of the stuff about him, Barnum and Bailey Circus, right? And he was known as being a great promoter. He was also known as being a great businessman. And a very interesting read when you read some of the stuff about him. He wasn't just some kind of a character or shyster or carnival barker or whatever you call it. He wasn't, charge of the circus. Circus is part of what he did. But he said money is a fabulous slave and a horrible master. And I think that's kind of what Jesus was talking about when he said you can't serve two masters. So having a pile of cash to face life's hardest moments It doesn't make the hardest moment go away, and the money's not important. Not saying that at all. It just gives you options, and you don't have to think about the stuff that doesn't matter. And that comes down to, I don't have to think about paying my light bill, so I can think about stuff that really matters. I don't have to think about keeping gas in my car, so I can think about stuff that really matters. I was thinking about that the other day. I stopped and filled up my car with gas, which was a mistake in the middle of all the Christmas traffic around this mall that we're sitting next to in this office. It's like you can't drive around this place. But anyway, and I was filling up the car. And I thought to myself, I remember, I hadn't thought about it in years, how many times I go to the gas station and I'm thinking, how much gas can I put in my car? How much money do I have? All the way back to college when gas was like, I don't know, it was $1 or something a gallon, or less than that, 78 cents a gallon or something like that when I was in college 100 years ago. And I'm trying to scrape together, nickels and quarters and stuff out of the couch and going through the cushions trying to get enough to put 2 gallons in the car to get to college that week. And how long it has been since I've thought about what gas costs. And what I was laughing to myself about was how much my life has changed, because I remember not having to be able to put gas in the car, and I'm thinking about, okay, I'm going to put $5 in, that'll get me the end of the week. I'm going to put $10 in, that'll get me the end of the week. I'm going to put $15 in. And the number of times I have pulled up to a gas pump and not filled the car up in the past 10 years is 0. 100% of the time in the past 10 years that I pull up, I fill it up completely. And I was just laughing to myself. It's a little change, but it's just because that no longer is something I worry about, because I've been living like no one else, and now I'm able to live and give like no one else. And I could turn around and if I thought to do it, and if I saw somebody that needed it, I would, and pay for somebody's gas right there at the pump. Somebody was struggling, look over and see somebody that looks like they need a tank of gas to get somewhere. And it wouldn't change my life. It wouldn't be like, oh, see, I just, now I can't pay the light bill Tuesday because I was generous. Your generosity changes. Your ability to be generous changes. And sometimes if you just scale things a little bit in your mind, and that can give you hope or a way or a direction, it'll outline the principle for you as to what you're doing. And that means, what would I give if I had $500,000 in my mutual funds, and I had $50,000 in an emergency fund, and I ran into X, Y, or Z situation? What kind of a tip would I leave for the valet or the waiter or the waitress, the guy that brought the pizza? How would I think differently if I didn't have to worry about money? See, that's what we're talking about every day on this show. It's not that money is the answer, but that it changes your life when you don't have to think about it anymore. You don't have to think about it. What car you drive, or you don't have to think about it anymore. Because you thought about it. You're going to live like no one else. You're going to pay a price to win. You're going to hustle and grind, baby. You're going to live like no one else, so that later you can live and give like no one else. The Bible says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but it yields a harvest of righteousness. This is the Dave Ramsey Show. You guys would be so rich so fast and be able to do so much, not only for yourselves and for your family, but for others. We're